know, give me some voice here. Do I unmute myself? No.
No, you're good on that. You're sharp. Yeah, you're sharp. Yeah, you're good.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the council public meeting for Wednesday, June 17th. Just want to let everyone know that the public may submit written support and correspondence, which we received a lot of for this evening, on urgent matters by email to clerks@richmondhill.ca. Electronic delegations, which we have a few, may apply to appear at the electronic delegation by video conference or by telephone. And 12 days before it's submitted to noon on the day of the meeting by email at clerks once again. So this evening we have two applications, and I will read to you the public hearing statement. We are in a public hearing process. If a person or a public body does not make oral submissions or at a public meeting or make written submissions to the city of Richmond Hill in respect of a proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and or plan of subdivision or condominium, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of city council to the local planning appeal tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there is a reasonable grounds to do so. So this evening is the time to please step forward if you wish. And you've given us correspondence, and the process is very much the same as it always has been. The staff will first of all describe the application to us. And at that point, after that, the applicant or someone on their behalf would also provide information on their application. There is no decisions being made, and then at that point in time, we will call people forward who wish to be a delegate to speak. I remind you, it's a 5-minute time for everyone to maybe they will say what they wish to say. And at that point in time, it gets turned back to the council for their discussions and to move it on to the next part of the program. So with that, could I have a motion by members of council to adopt the agenda, please? Councillor Chan, Councillor Barros, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof by any members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk. And at this point in time, we start to our scheduled business, which is 3.1, request for comments, draft plan of subdivision application 0 Elgin Mills Road East. And Jeff Healy from our planning department will explain this application to all of us. Mr. Healy.
Good evening, Mayor Barrow, members of council, and the public. The first item tonight involves a proposed draft plan of subdivision application for the lands known as 0 Elgin Mills Road East, with a legal description of part of Lot 26, Concession 2. Next slide, please. Subject lands are located at the northeast corner of Bayview Avenue and Elgin Mills Road East. The lands are currently vacant and have a total area of approximately 4.1 hectares or 10 acres. A tributary of the Rouge River bisects the property at the northeast corner of the lands. Surrounding uses include an existing place of worship to the north, proposed and future medium density residential uses to the east, Elgin Mills Road and a future residential use to the south, and Bayview Avenue and existing commercial plaza to the west. It should be noted that a council public meeting was held on June 19th, 2019 for related official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications on the subject lands to facilitate development of 2 14-story mixed-use residential commercial buildings, townhouse dwellings, and the establishment of conservation lands for an existing wetland on the property. The application before council tonight is only a supplemental application to the original official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications, and its sole purpose is to facilitate the creation of the blocks for the development. Next slide, please. The owner is seeking approval of a draft plan of subdivision application to facilitate the creation of 3 blocks. 1 block to the west of the property to facilitate the location of the proposed high-rise residential, mixed-use residential commercial uses. 1 block in the center of the property to facilitate proposed common element townhouse uses. And 1 block to the northeast quadrant of the property to establish natural heritage system block for conservation purposes. The purpose of this report is to provide council and the public with an overview of the applicant's draft plan subdivision application, and has been structured for information purposes only, with a recommendation that all comments be referred back to staff for consideration. Thank you.
You can say that again, sir. You're on mute.
Okay, I'm sorry. Now we will call on for the applicant, representative for the applicant, sorry. Ms. Dale Harris, is that yourself?
Yeah, Ms. Dale Harris, if you can unmute.
Am I unmuted?
Yep, you're good.
Yes.
Good to go? Okay. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Barrow, council, and members of the public who are on virtually with us this evening. My name is Lindsay Dale Harris. I'm a partner with the firm of Bousfields, and I'm here as the agent for 1430518 Ontario Limited, who are the owners of the property known as 0 Elgin Mills Road, and it's simply with respect to their draft plan of subdivision. I had a presentation. I'm not sure if that's up or not.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's
It
up.
is. Okay, so the first page of that presentation is just says it's a council public meeting, the location, the time, and the draft plan of subdivision number. So the next slide, which is very similar. I'm just going to go quickly through this. So it's really been covered by Jeff. It shows exactly where the site is at the corner of Bayview and Elgin Mills. It's approximately 4 hectares in size. And the next slide, please. Shows the area context and the different applications which are in, which Jeff had referred to the east, townhouses at 850 Elgin Mills Road, to the south, applications for some apartment buildings at 10747 Bayview, to the west, on the west side of Bayview, there's a commercial plaza with the Tim Hortons, and very importantly, to the north, there's the Hindu Temple Society of Canada property at 10865 Bayview. And you can see it extends down to the north limit of the subject property. And I'll speak more about that later. Next slide. This just tells you the application history. Originally submitted in November 2016, and then revised in November 2018. As Jeff mentioned, in June of last year, we had a public meeting to deal with the zoning bylaw application, the official plan amendment application, and the site plan application. And at that time, we had 2 14-story apartment buildings, a total of 376 apartment units, and about 97 townhouse units, and some ground floor retail. So the requested OPA, which was considered at the time, was simply to increase the height to 14 stories. There's an existing approval for 10 stories, but there's no increase respected to the density of the site. 2 times is what's set out in the secondary plan, and 2 times is what's being sought in this application. And if you turn to the next slide, you can see there's the Richmond Hill official plan showing the subject site in the settlement area, and then the North Leslie secondary plan, which shows the commercial designation, and that's the designation that gives us the density of 2 times and the height of 10 stories. Following the public meeting, staff reviewed the site plan, and they requested a number of changes, particularly with respect to the design of the building that we had been presented. But more importantly, meetings were held with the Hindu temple to the north. And as a result of those meetings, the temple board has provided a signed letter of support for the development at a density of 2 times coverage with 2 towers at a maximum of 14 stories each, plus they're mechanical. And they've also recognized that there could be an additional 9-story building. That building actually is going to be dropped, and there will not be a 9-story apartment building. So that was sort of to address some of the concerns that were raised at that public meeting and really concentrated on getting support from the Hindu temple. Then through discussions with the planning department, they determined that as the townhouse component of the development was going to proceed as a common element condo with parcels of tied land, they needed to have a draft plan of subdivision. And that's the reason for the subdivision application, which is before you this evening. It's a technical requirement to allow that particular form of condominium development. And it's to facilitate the development of the townhouses. And holding the public meeting for the subdivision now will allow all 4 applications, the draft plan application, the zoning application, the official plan amendment application, and the site plan, all to proceed together. And we're hopeful that a report looking at all of those will be before you sometime later this fall. If we could have just another slide.
1 minute.
Okay, that's a picture of the draft plan of subdivision, block 1, block 2, block 3. Next slide, please. That's the preliminary site plan, which is being prepared, which shows where the townhouses are going to be, the location of block 3, which is the open space land, and the location of the apartment buildings, highest at 14, stepping down to 6. Next slide, please. That shows you the blocks and how it relates to the land around it. Block 3, which is the big block, 1.66 hectares, is going to be dedicated to the TRCA. So you can see it's really a significant part of the entire site. Next slide, please. That's a rendering today of what we think the 14-story apartment buildings will look like right at the corner. And next slide, please. That's the draft plan showing the mixed use area. And you can see the apartments are going to be right at the corner. Then comes the townhouses, and then comes a big block of land being dedicated to a public authority. Thank you very much. And I'm here to answer any questions.
No, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Now we have our delegations here, and I am going to do my best to say names, but our first is Sivalangingham.
Marion first.
I'm sorry?
Marion first.
I don't remember.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mayor Barrow, deputy mayors, and members of council. Thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight, and thank you to the public for attending in this Zoom format. We really appreciate it. As Lindsay mentioned, we have a proposal at the northeast corner of Bayview and Elgin Mills. And to give you a little bit of history on our relationship with and our history with the temple, I'm going to walk through and talk through some of the steps. So beginning a year ago, from the period of June to October 2019, so immediately after we had our previous public meeting, we met with the president and trustees of the temple board, specifically on 4 occasions. 2 of these meetings were mediated, kindly mediated by Councillor Liu and Deputy Mayor Pirelli. In addition to these meetings, we had multiple calls and emails listening to the temple's concerns, including their desire for a traffic light off the temple property. We spent time with the temple illustrating our plans for our property and what we were allowed to build as of right per the North Leslie secondary plan, which is 2 times density and 10 stories. We described why we chose to propose 2 14 towers with a 6-story podium and 3-story townhouses, because we believe that this is a better urban form rather than 4 10-story towers or 10-story walls along Bayview and Elgin Mills. All conversations were rational, factual, based on planning principles, and respectful. After collaborative efforts, we reached an understanding and received a formal letter of support from the temple board in December of 2019. As Lindsay mentioned, although the support is based on a plan that includes a 9-story mid-rise building at the center of the site, in addition to the 2 14-story towers in early 2020, we decided to replace the 9-story mid-rise with townhouses and a park. And please note, this was solely at our own discretion. This was not based on comments from planning staff, thereby creating a better site plan, and simplifying our construction process. This materialized to a reduced GFA and unit count. So today, our plan is below our 2 times as of right density. We are thrilled to have responded to urban design and planning comments and have one of the best architecture teams in Canada, which is Quadrangle Architects, to create something special at this key corner of the city of Richmond Hill. We are committed to building striking architecture with the appropriate urban form that aligns with the planning intentions for the area, supporting growth by allowing density. Again, Mayor Barrow, deputy mayors, and members of council, thank you for listening tonight, and thank you for your time.
No, thank you very much. And I apologize. We were mixed up in the list here. All right, we will now go to delegates. Savalingham. Yes, sir. There we are. I'll wave to you too. There we go. Ms. Okay, please go ahead.
If you could please unmute your mic.
You need to, you have to come off the, there you go. Okay.
Hi, my name is Mrs. Sivalingam. I'm a life member and founder member and past president, Mr. Sivalingam's wife. And I'm really concerned about only the temple. The temple normally makes lots of noise because summertime we have 3 major deities have 15-day functions, and morning and evening we have those functions. And morning we don't go around the temple procession, but nighttime we go around the temple, and that makes with the drum and things like that. And because of the noise, we want the builder to inform the buyers we will have, because we are neighbors, we will have noise producing things. So they had to let them, the buyers to know that there will be noise. And I'm concerned about the traffic too. So if the builder agrees with us, the noise concern is okay, and the traffic is controlled, then I'm not opposing it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. They're on the record. Our next delegate is Venu Tampi. Sir, it's the same. You have to take. Can we not manage those?
No, no. Service.
Sorry, I'm an old school.
That's okay. I am too.
Good evening, Mayor Dave Barrow, deputy mayors, council members, and ladies and gentlemen. My sincere thanks to the city for offering me this opportunity to speak at this evening. My name is Venu Tampi. I was the president of the temple in year 2018 and 2019. During these 2 years, I led the negotiations with 2 different developers very collaboratively and successfully. 850 Elgin Mills East, Mr. Castro Lu was for part of it, and 0 Elgin Mills East, Carmen as part of it. I wish to provide some, this evening I'm going to focus only on 0 Elgin Mills East negotiations done in 2019. I wish to provide some important information to many of the members who are here from the temple community. Many of you may have received phone calls and flyers to attend this meeting to present arguments against the development. Let me tell you, I shared the same sentiment as some of you do now when our representatives came here last year, June 19, to protest the development. All the speakers made persuasive comments to avoid high-rise buildings in the temple neighborhood. Deputy Mayor Carmen Pirelli invited the temple team that consisted of Dr. Krishnan, who was a past president and a current trustee, Ms. Tiva Mohan, a deputy judge, Mr. Raj Kidampi and Mr. Ganga Tharmalingam, past trustees, Dr. Reddy Pannambalam, a life member, and myself. Deputy mayors and a councillor were present at this meeting. We were provided with a copy of North Leslie secondary plan that was approved in 2012 by OMB. We learned that North Leslie secondary plan permitted 10 stories building at 0 Elgin Mills East. The most objection we could raise was about the two 14-story buildings that Mansouri Living wanted to build. Reviewing the site plan, we realized that there is no increase in density in the modified plan. We did not feel confident that an appeal process will be of much help to our temple, since this process is now, forgive me, switched from OMB to LPAT, except delaying the development at considerable legal cost to the temple. Sensing the impending development and consequent population growth, we felt it is imperative that we should focus on securing the property by installing a fence and a traffic light. We were advised that the region will support a traffic light at the entrance, but the temple will have to come up with the installation cost. And I openly admit, at this juncture, Mansouri Living offered financial assistance up to $125,000 towards the security and traffic light. We appreciate that. The Board of Trustees, by a substantial majority, approved to accept this offer, which was disclosed at the AGM in December 2019. And I just overheard Mrs. Sivalingam saying about the noise factor. I'm sure Mariam will confirm that this is part of the deal that we made, that it will be included in the deals to the buyers of this condos. I thank you for that. I understand the deal is not a perfect one to satisfy all of us. I can assure each and every one of you that the committee and the 2019 Board of Trustees did all due diligence in its negotiations to secure the best possible deal for the benefit of the temple. I appreciate the majority support from the Board of Trustees in 2019, as well as the current one. I know it may disappoint some of you that we did not fight further.
1 minute.
That's what is being speculated. I can assure you on a personal note, that as well as President of the Board of Trustees 2019, that we did everything to improve the stature of the temple with very minimum legal costs. My sincere thanks to the committee members and trustees for their support. I thank Mayor and all other council members for giving me this opportunity to speak and clarify. May Lord Ganesha's blessing be on all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well said. Our next is Kathira Avelo. Visit. I probably not spell it. There we are. That you might not recognize your name when I speak it. Go ahead, sir. If you would, you have to come off the, there you go.
Hi, my name is Viswan. I'm the past secretary for 2018 and 2019. I just want to thank you for the city mayor and the city staff for facilitating these last 2 years I worked with you. I just want to thank you, Mr. Mansouri, to come up with the settlement. We are very happy the way things are, but I just want you to help us with the traffic light. That's all we wanted. That's my goal. We want to see the traffic light at the entrance to the temple. I want the city's support and also the builders to support us for the traffic light to get that implemented. That's all I have. Thank you for all your support.
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And next I have Hamid Tambi. A second, Tambi, T-H-M-A-M-B, aye. I'll go to, sorry, there's not here, and I'll go to the next one is Mr. Spencer, 449 Dudley. There we go, sir. We're calling on you. He can't hear. Sir, we're ready for you. Go ahead. You need to take out your, there you go, sir. Sir, welcome. Mr. Spencer. Okay, sir, your comments? Nope, nothing coming up. Can you hear us, sir? We can't hear him. So I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do. Have you put this into writing, given your thoughts, and if you do that and send it into the planning department, we'll have all of your concerns and issues, and or not concerns and issues, and Mr. Healy and the other staff can perhaps make sure. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Spencer. I apologize that we weren't able to hear your thoughts. Okay, that is my last delegate on my list. Good to go. So we will go now back to staff. Councillor Castro-Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for staff. Thank you for all the public who are watching online right now. And, you know, thank you for all the delegations. This has come a long way. And, you know, for the past many years, myself, you know, Councillor Munch, you know, which is Ward 2 across the street, and also Deputy Mayor Carmine Pirelli has been working diligently with the applicant and also with the temple and with staff. Hopefully we can come up with something that's appropriate at that Bayview and Elgin Mills corner. And you know, tonight we see a modified plan which I'm quite glad that, you know, instead of 4 10-story buildings, we're now having 2 14-story buildings transitioning down, and even they eliminate the 9-story building. So, and as the applicant said, they are now below their as of right density. So in terms of density, I'm really glad to see, because over the years I'm trying to negotiate. Hopefully we can get it all townhouses, but you know, the reality is it's not going to happen. So this is I think, you know, we're trying to fight for the best, and this is I think, except for the height. 2 14 stories. Other than that, I think everything it's good. They have commercials. They have townhouses. And they have 2 14 stories. And I would like to reiterate that tonight it's just for information purposes only, and you know, all the comments will go back to staff. We're not making a decision here tonight. And this is the corner of the entrance of the North Leslie Secondary Plan. And so far, North Leslie Secondary Plan has been such a success for Richmond Hill. So I would like to, you know, not only for the density, the height, I would like to see a good planning. I would like to see good design, good transition, and, you know, something really appropriate at that corner. I would like to see an icon, you know, this is the land icon for the entrance of the North Leslie Secondary Plan. So yeah, and I would encourage staff to continue to work with the temple, with the applicant, and hopefully, you know, there's always room for improvement. And one thing is important, that the buyers has to be aware of the noise that generate from the temple. So other than that, I don't have any more comments, and I would like to thank once again for everyone for the opportunity. Hopefully we can have something nice comes up there at the corner of Bayview and Elgin Mills. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move the staff recommendation that all comments be referred back to staff for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Speakers list, Councillor Pirelli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to second the motion. It is true that I have been involved for a very long time now during this term. I have met with people from the temple. on several occasions. I engaged the services of our transportation experts at the region, as was alluded to, the purpose of which was to get the facts. And the facts that came out were, Mr. Mayor, that the entrance to the temple does not meet the warrant, the justification for the region to pick up the bill for putting in traffic lights. But after extensive consultations with Paul Jankowski from the region, we were advised that the region has no objection to a traffic light being put in at that location, despite the fact it doesn't meet the warrant. And the justification for that, Mr. Mayor, was that today's lights are smart lights. And the concern when we put in lights where they're really not needed is that they're going to slow down the traffic on Bayview, because the temple doesn't have a lot of traffic most of the time. It's just when they have their great events, and usually on the weekend, and the three major ones that were alluded to earlier during the summer. And so that would cause a problem for the traffic. But because today's lights are smart lights and they won't go on and interrupt the flow of traffic on Bayview north and southbound, if there's nobody at the light at the temple, then it makes sense to allow it there. And because there's been some collaboration between the temple board of directors, and I'm happy to see with the applicant, they've generously donated money towards the creation and paying of this traffic light. And I think that would be good for everybody, Mr. Mayor, because safety, of course, is always our number one concern. As it pertains to the application, I'm pleased to see that we've lowered down the buildings. For most of the people that I think are watching this evening, they're aware of the traditions and the Hindu temples beliefs. And that is that those the towers they have on their buildings, they're high towers because they have to be seen for miles around, Mr. Mayor, to attract the believers to come to the temple. And so by limiting the amount of tall buildings and having a couple of taller buildings and the rest shorter, it gives more view of those iconic sculptures at the top of the Hindu temple. And I think that's really important to the Hindu people. And we want to honor that and respect that as much as possible. So I, again, like Councillor Liu, I look forward to seeing, working on this over the next 3 or 4 months with staff, work on the design, make sure that we fine tune it so that everybody is happy and we get the best possible planning application that we can. As Councillor Liu stated, this is the iconic focal point into the North Leslie, and we need to get it right, Mr. Mayor, because it's going to be there for a very long time. Those are my comments, and I look forward to working together with the community to see this to fruition. Thank you.
I'll put you down as seconder. Motion.
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor.
Other speakers, please, if you would just, Councilor Munch. Go ahead. Turn yourself off.
There you go, guys. Sorry, my mute was on. I wanted to thank the applicant and the community from coming together. It's been a long process. I also want to thank Councillor Liu for taking some lead, and Councillor Pirelli for being involved. In regards to the applicant, very, very good application, and it's really good that they respecting the height and the look of the temple as it goes forward. I like that they're trying to work forwards with the transportation. Challenging corner, been along a long time. I think to have 2 larger buildings as opposed to 4 large buildings is actually going to work better. And along with the townhouses are going to actually help some with housing affordability. And it's my hope that some of the people on the temple will be able to purchase some of this property so they can be close to where they practice their faith. I think it's a really good progress what we've gone forwards with. I think it's been unbelievably great collaboration. I hope everyone can continue to work forward. I look forward to seeing continued collaboration. I think it's great that we're trying to work on the transportation side, extremely concerning about traffic of the area. It's always a real problematic for people in Ward 2 when there is the big Hindu events with regards to parking, and I'm sure we all know about that. And with the noise on that evolves, I think it's important that everyone understands the context, similar to 30 years ago when the temple came forward and some of the challenges that came forward. We've been consistent on how that works out. So I want to say thanks to everybody. I think it's great that this application has gone forward. I think the applicant has shown good faith. I think the temple leadership really deserves a lot of a lot of respect here. And I know it's been challenging for them and some of the people there. And I've spoken to some of the people at the temple this week and previously, obviously. So application is going to go forward to some context. I think it's great that we're balancing the faith community with the green space and the collaboration with traffic and getting a really good development that's going to be good for the community. So congratulations, and I look forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chan, do you wish to speak? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, staff, for the report and the applicants. And I think that it seems to me this is an example of all parties are really paying attention to each other, because at the end of the day, it's something that has to be comfortable, felt by all stakeholders, so to speak. So I just want to seek clarification. Well, local council comment on the height. I'm not going to say anything else. And just through you, Mr. Mayor, perhaps the staff can help me, because when I'm reading, particularly on page 4, it actually it talks about breaking down by all the townhouses, and in the different bodies of the report, including page 4, it keeps saying that it's 48 townhouse dwelling. But if I add those numbers correctly, street townhouse, rear lane townhouses, back-to-back townhouses, block townhouses, it's the same 97 as the one before the revised proposal. So am I overcounting, or do that table is somewhat represent what's in the past? For you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to seek clarification. How many townhouses are we talking about? For you, Mr. Chair, to planning staff.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The chart that's provided on page 4 of the report essentially provides the breakdown of the townhouse component from the original site plan submission. So that was originally submitted back in the late part of 2018, early 2019. And then as you continue down in that paragraph on further on page 4, you'll see that as the application has evolved with the draft plan of subdivision application, there's been a change to the unit count to reflect as what's currently been brought forward as 48 townhouses. So there's been a slight decrease in the number of townhouse units that have been proposed at this time. But I will say, just with the caveat that at this point we are awaiting a revised site plan submission from the applicant, and we will await to see what the ultimate revised development submission will be. Thank you.
Thank you. That's what I thought. The table there before all the paragraphs are from the original. So thank you for confirming that. But interesting, you talk about decrease. And then at the bottom of the last paragraph on page 4, and it's talking about applicant actually has submitted a letter dated May 8th. And then it will further decrease. So I gather the total number of units in the two buildings would also be, looks like to be decreased. Again, maybe through Mr. Mayor to the staff.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Again, yeah, there was a subsequent letter that was submitted to staff on May the 8th, and that was essentially to provide a further breakdown of units, and it appears at this point that there will be a further decrease to the overall unit count within the development. It's not clear at this time as to whether or not that unit breakdown will be affecting the townhouses or the apartment units, but again, we'll see that upon submission of a future site plan submission.
Thank you. Thank you for clarification. But the general pattern is the trending downwards in terms of total number of units. And I saw the applicant's agent nodding. So thank you for clarifying that, because from the reading, there are 3 different things on page 4. So which one is right? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to spend the time to seek clarification.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak at this time? Seeing none, and all those in favor of returning all back? Opposed?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just quickly, I didn't get on your list.
Sorry, I didn't see you there.
Yeah, Councilor Paolo.
Go ahead.
Here, I just want to thank all the people that have worked collaboratively on this. It's not an ideal situation. It's not something I support, and I don't think this council or even past councils would ever want this kind of height on an intersection of a regional road. I hope we can prevent it. East of Bayview, this is not what's desirable for Richmond Hill, but we are subject to an OMB ruling, and I really want to congratulate people that have made the best of the situation, and I'm happy to support going forward. We're receiving comments today. That's my comment, Mr. Mayor. I don't support this height or density east of Bayview, and we'll be trying to avoid it in the future, but I understand it can't be avoided in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go again. All those in favor of the opposed? Carries unanimously, as I see. Thank you all very much. Our second application today is, where are we? Staff report with respect to official plan zoning bylaw, Leslie Elgin Developments. Okay. And Ms. Doris Channing, our staff member, will describe the application to us. Ms. Channing.
Good morning, Mayor Barrow and members of council and the public. The final public meeting tonight involves official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications for the lands municipally known as 0 McCaig Avenue. Next slide, please. The subject property is located on the east side of Leslie Street, north of Elgin Mills Road East, at the northeast corner of Leslie Street and McCaig Avenue, and has a total site area of 0.958 hectares or 2.37 acres. The land is currently vacant and was created as part of the first phase of registration of the Leslie Elgin draft approved plan of subdivision. The land has frontage on Leslie Street, McCaig Avenue, and Lunay Drive, and abuts the York Hills Center for Children, Youth, and Families to the north. The lands are designated mixed-use commercial residential and protected countryside in the city's North Leslie secondary plan. The mixed-use commercial residential designation provides for a mix of commercial and employment uses, including live, work, built forms. In addition, this land parcel contains a site-specific provision which states that the lands are intended for business and professional offices and accessory uses. However, standalone residential uses are not permitted. The protected countryside designation is intended for environmental protection. Lands in this designation are to be appropriately zoned and acquired by the city or public agency to ensure its protection in perpetuity. Permitted uses in protected countryside are governed by the Greenbelt Plan legislation. However, in accordance with the North Leslie secondary plan, any use associated with or serving an urban use is not currently permitted. With respect to the zoning, the lands are zoned mixed use 3 zone under bylaw 5515 as amended. This zone allows for a range of uses, including clinics, offices, personal service shops, daycares, medical offices, restaurants, and retail stores. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment application intends to rezone the lands from mixed-use 3 zone to mixed-use 1 zone with site-specific exceptions to facilitate the proposal. Next slide, please. The applicant is seeking to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to facilitate the construction of a medium-density residential development comprised of 19 live, work, and 16 back-to-back townhouse dwelling units on a private condominium road, which will have access from Lune Drive. The proposal also includes 117 parking spaces and a private amenity space. Staff have circulated the applications to internal departments and external agencies for review and comment. The purpose of this report is to provide council and the public with an overview of the applicant's development proposal and has been structured for information purposes with a recommendation that all comments will be referred back to staff for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And on behalf of the applicant. I believe. There we go. Lauren, you're on. You just got.
Good evening, members of council. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. I also provided the clerk with a copy of the presentation. Great. Thank you very much. So good evening, everyone. My name is Lauren Capolongo. I'm a land use planner with Malone Given Parsons, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Leslie Elgin Developments, Inc. And I'm just going to provide a brief supplementary presentation in addition to some of the information that Doris has already shared with council. As Doris mentioned, Leslie Elgin has submitted applications for official plan and zoning bylaw amendment to permit a mixed-use development consisting of both live, work, and back-to-back townhouses. Next slide. As Doris explained, the lands are located within the North Leslie Secondary Plan area, and they're currently designated mixed-use commercial residential. The overall policies applicable to this block do permit a range of commercial and residential uses, including live, work, and medium-density residential uses such as townhouse uses. However, there is a site-specific policy that applies to this block that prohibits standalone residential uses. And the purpose of the Leslie Elgin application is to amend the secondary plan to permit standalone residential uses on this block. Next slide. Just by way of background, several years ago, Leslie Elgin advanced and registered a draft plan or a subdivision plan on the property, and the copy of the draft plan is shown on your screen here. The subdivision plan, among other things, created this mixed-use block that is subject to the application this evening. And as you can see, at that time, the lands were always intended to provide a mix of commercial and residential uses. This block, as Doris explained, is a little bit unique in that a small portion of the block, about 0.28 acres at the northeast corner, are within the Greenbelt Plan area. And the portion of the block that's in the Greenbelt is shown on this slide, outlined in that sort of thick gray coloring. The Greenbelt lands, the lands that are within the Greenbelt, I should say, have no environmental features, and they do not serve as a buffer to any adjacent natural heritage features. They're simply lands that are trapped within the Greenbelt plan boundary. Next slide. This is just a colored up version of the concept plan that Doris shared with you earlier. As we explained, it's a proposal for a mixed-use residential commercial development comprised of live, work units and back-to-back townhouses. The concept plan proposes 19 townhouses, which are identified in that pink salmon color on the slide. They have frontage onto Leslie and McCaig Avenue, and they will have commercial uses at grade with a level residential living areas located on the upper floors. And internal to the site, there are 16 proposed back-to-back townhouse units, which are shown in the yellow coloring. All the townhouses are proposed with a height of 3 stories, and they'll be accessed by a new 6-meter wide private laneway, which gains its access off of Lune Drive. And there's also a private amenity space proposed at the northeast corner of the block that are within the lands that are part of the Greenbelt plan. And at this time, it's intended to be a private amenity space to provide passive recreational uses and will form part of the condo corporation's ownership. However, our hope is to work with city staff to find a way that these lands could potentially be used as some sort of public parkland, so to provide a greater amenity space for the broader community. Next slide. Just to give council some idea of the type of product that's being proposed, there are some conceptual renderings on your screen. These are conceptual renderings for the live work units that will front onto Leslie and McCaig. Next slide. This is another potential conceptual design for the live-work units that Leslie Elgin has developed. It's the same sort of live-work unit. The only difference between this rendering and the previous is the slope of the roof. Next slide. And this is a conceptual design for the back-to-back townhouses, which are proposed internal to the block. And I just want to highlight to council that these are renderings or conceptual at the stage, and we will ultimately advance the design of the townhouse dwellings through a future application for site plan, working collaboratively with your urban design and planning staff. Next slide. And lastly, just very quickly to highlight the proposed zoning, we're seeking to rezone the block from a current mixed use 3 zone to a mixed use 1 zone to allow the standalone residential uses, in addition to the live, work, and commercial uses that are already permitted by the M1 zone. It's the same zoning that applies to the block located on the south side of McCaig. We're also seeking some site-specific zone standards to implement the proposed development. And we will facilitate and work with your city staff to finalize those site-specific amendments, working through the site plan application process, which is to come. Next slide. So with that, I'll just conclude my presentation. And if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. I just want to note that Mr. Dave Stewart, a representative from Leslie Elgin Development, Inc., and Mr. Tony DiCarlo, who's a project architect, are both available to answer any questions. And they're on the line. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Maura. Thank you. Okay, we have no delegates. So we'll move back to Councilor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, staff and the applicant for their presentations. I don't have much concern on this application. The live work is a permitted use there, and I think the only thing is the 16 back-to-back townhouses. Personally, I don't have any issue with it. So density and height is not a concern, except for there is some protected countryside, the private amenity space that was mentioned. Staff is going to review, and it doesn't hurt to be a public park. As I said, I look forward to staff to continue to work with the applicant, and I'll move a motion to have all the comments refer back to staff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so on the speakers list, Councilor Perrella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess as customary, the local councillor will always speak first, but I did have a motion, Mr. Mayor, that I'd like to add. Happy to second Councillor Liu's motion with a slight amendment, Mr. Mayor, and if I could ask the clerk to put that amendment on the screen. I've worked collaboratively with the applicant and staff on this, and I think that this this motion here, Mr. Mayor, addresses some efficiencies moving forward, gives a little bit of certainty to the applicant that in principle we acknowledge this as good planning, and it kind of ties the zoning bylaw and the official plan amendment with the site plan, so that we're more efficient moving forward. So I'd like to give all my colleagues on council a moment to read the motion, and then I'm happy to answer any questions and make further comments. Mr. Mayor.
Whole thing is on the screen. Everybody, I'm looking out here. Everybody pay attention. I would add my spot was that private indemnity area was something I couldn't understand what it was for or what it's about, and this seems to make it very plain. So I appreciate that personally. Okay, well, are we good to move on?
Mr. Mayor, thank you, but I can't take all the credit. This was a collaboration, of course, with staff and the applicant. So I can't take all the credit myself, Mr. Mayor.
So Councillor Liu, your original one never had a seconder. Do you wish to move on this one, sir?
Not at this moment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm happy to move an amendment, Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
to include B, of course.
Yep. Councillor Barros, I had you on the list too.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to second this. Having been on council for some time now, this is not a new application to the city of Richmond Hill. This was seen by the then town of Richmond Hill a number of years ago. And I know it brings a lot of benefits to the area. I know at one point the school next door was quite anxious to see some of these developments moving forward, because the movement of development would bring the school water and sewer services, which it currently didn't enjoy. The other thing that I recognize, Mr. Mayor, with this particular area, this has been over a 20-year application period for the area along the city and the developers. We're at a point now, Mr. Mayor, where I am delighted to see the forwarding of this application to collect development charges, to collect building permit fees, and ultimately to have new people move into the area and to receive the benefits of taxation on those properties. There's no reason for delay in my mind, which is why I'm happy to second the motion here. And from the perspective of protection, this isn't giving the applicant final approval. This is saying, more or less in principle, we're okay with your application for zoning and OP. When you submit your site plan, that's when the entire package kind of wraps together, and will then send you on your way to be able to get those building permits. It gives the builder surety that they're in the right direction, and that this is something that this council wants to see happen in this particular area. I'm delighted to second it, and I thank the applicant for coming forward and being so patient with the now city, previously town, and I'm just delighted to see it moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments, please? Councillor West, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to clarify from a procedural point of view, the mover of this motion, like we had a mover, there was no opportunity to second it. We're now moving on to some other motion. Help me to understand where we're at with this whole procedure tonight.
An amendment.
Normally what happens is when the thing comes forward, we have a recommendation. It's in the staff report.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
That recommendation didn't get moved.
But it did. Councillor Lee moved it.
Moved and then, but not seconded.
But I would have seconded it had I had the opportunity to second it. You can't put another motion on the floor before there's a seconder for the motion that was there originally.
Wasn't a seconder though.
Okay, anyway, on to my comments. I don't understand why we would do this. The net result of moving the motion that is now on the floor versus the procedure that we traditionally follow with a council public hearing will get us to likely the same destination or a similar destination, but it's a process that people in the public and on council, frankly, understand. So I'm not sure why we would be changing this, analyzing it properly with our professional staff. So I won't be able to support this particular motion, although I do have some good things to say about the application itself. I would just really like it if we could consistently follow the practices that we normally follow. So speaking of the application directly, the concept of live work is a concept that I do think has merit. And I'm actually, on one hand, I'm glad that I'm seeing this in this application, because I think it is a more modern type of employment land use, and I'm pleased to see that. However, in because of the process that I was expecting to happen tonight, I was going to say that I wouldn't mind our staff making a specific point of analyzing the differences between this application and what would have been expected in the official plan. Because if this application is precluding the possibility of having a more significant number of employment office type uses in the application, then I have a problem with that, because what essentially we are doing or potentially, and I'd like to see the analysis by our staff, but what we're potentially doing here is eroding the number of working spaces that would be available if we had developed this property as the official plan contemplated. So, but given that seem to be moving this process along in a slightly different way, I'm not sure how we're going to get that analysis. And I'm not sure what we would do with the analysis if we found out that there is an erosion of employment land and we should have been doing something else instead. So I would rather see the process progress like we would normally expect it to progress, where council public hearings, we're really not making final decisions. I mean, Mr. Mayor, you say that in your script at the beginning of the meeting, yet for the last couple of meetings, we've actually are starting to make decisions at council public meetings. Well, what process are we actually going to be following? So those are my comments. Again, I on a positive note, I would like to say that I think that the live work concept is valid, but I think I would like to know how that stacks up compared to what we would normally have expected with the official plan that's in place at this time. So thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments at this time? Okay, I've got Councillor Munch and Councillor Chan now. Go ahead, Councillor Munch.
Good day, thank you. So I like the application. I have some questions as well, which just need some clarification. So I see 35 units of townhouses, live work townhouses. I love the concept of a live work townhouse and a back-to-back townhouse. The question I ask is, why do you need so many parking spaces at 117 parking spaces? What am I missing here? For 35 units and we have 117, that's roughly 3 units per townhouse. Is that right?
For the commercial.
Just one sec, we'll ask staff. Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Barrow, that's not what's required. That's what's actually being proposed by the applicant to address the uses that they're proposing on the site.
Okay, just it seems like a lot of parking spaces for a live work unit. I love the concept that they're addressing the, there's a need for this type of product, and I think the location is fantastic. And I do like the application on balance. I would agree with Councillor West, whereby if we are going to rethink how we're going to be moving motions in these council public meetings, then we should rethink on how we're doing our governance here. We've gone from committee of a whole to one council meeting to public meetings to making decisions. And I think this type of thing has got to, if we're going to be going down this route, then we need to have a wholesome discussion. I will not be supporting the amendment because we are doing this sort of ad hoc, was not giving any heads up. I don't think it's fair to the public who can't engage. So I would say on balance, I like the application. I like the idea of council public. I think if we're going to consistently say that we're here to get council comments, to respect our staff and our engagement to go through that process, we should do that. I think once we start moving motions on the fly arbitrarily on one-offs without engagement with the public really hurts. And for those that, I don't think anybody else on council participated in the LPAT hearing with the KDA, really significant cost to go down this process for everyone in the process. So I think it's not good governance. I don't think it's the way we should be going forward. And I would discourage that type of process. So I applaud Councillor West for making that comment going forward. I would like to say with regards to the applicant and this application looks pretty good. And I'd like to thank them for moving forwards on this. I know it's been a process, but keep plugging. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, I'd like to start off, yes, I also like the part of our live work unit. I think particularly the location is close to 404, so it's really something that we could actually develop or promote more in Richmond Hill. Having said that, I share the concern of the two previous colleagues speaking about the process, because I'm looking at the local councillor move for what the staff are recommending, which is the established process and procedure to do this under a council public meeting. So in fact, I have concern this is called amendment. It's not amendment, it's completely new motion. And both the speakers before me have touched on this point on process. And I have great concern about that a statutory council public meeting meant to be held under the Planning Act to hear comments from the public has turned into a decision-making meeting, like we should have been in council. Now, specifically, Mr. Mayor, I do have...
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to bring to your attention that the speaker is saying something that is not what staff told us at the last meeting. At the last council public meeting, staff was asked specifically, are we able to do what is being proposed right now? And staff had said, yes, there is no issue in moving forward with what you're doing. So I take grave offense to the misinformation that the councillor that is currently speaking is trying to give the public, that we're doing something that's inappropriate. Mr. Mayor, if you could remind the member of the commentary we received last week from our professional staff.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I did not say anything about misinformation. I'm indicating my comment on views on this. So if you allow me to continue, Mr. Mayor, I want to ask the staff, what would be the staff reaction to the particular advice they can give us on this motion in front of us, given not one department, but Development Engineering Division, Urban Design and Heritage Section, Community Service Department, Parks and Natural Heritage Planning. In addition, the York Region and TRCA. So only within the city of Richmond, we have 4 departments to comment. Now, as I say up front, it's a reasonable application. Like Councillor Muncher said before me, I generally like this application, but we have yet 4 departments within the city that's supposed to provide view. So for you, Mr. Mayor, I know the Director of Planning is here. What would be your advice with council would exercise what the speaker before me, not the speaker before me, the person mentioned, if can make such a decision, what would be the advice from the Director of Planning through Mr. Mayor, when 4 departments yet to present their review?
Thank you. Mr. Galanis.
Through you, Mayor Barrow, yes, there are technical things that need to be looked at here, but the way this is, the motion was written and the view that staff on it have on it is that from a land use point of view, we really don't have any objections. And the way the motion is structured, it still allows us to do the work that we need to do. We're holding the zoning bylaw in abeyance and working with the applicant to finalize all the details. So what the motion does is basically just move the OPA forward to the Region of York for approval, and we're satisfied that we can work to address any issues.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the answer, because I have seen something in the past at council when staff bring forward either committee of the whole or council is that draft approval, meaning approval in principle, but subject to. So, but this is not draft approval, but I appreciate the response. And I think I expressed my comments and concern And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Mayor, if I may,
Sorry?
if I just make a comment there.
Sorry, I thought we were finished. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I think it's important to note here, and I think staff, based upon certainly what I heard yesterday at the LPAT and legal proceeding of a 5-hour deliberation with regards to how we deal with the Municipal Act and the Planning Act, further to Councillor Barrow's comment of what staff would say. I would like to reiterate back further to that discussion. I'd like to have staff clarify that because there was some real interesting comments that were made at that hearing. And I really want to make sure that we are getting the right advice going forward as to what our guidelines are. And I would hate to have this process that we are following because we're hearing some comments from staff, but we didn't really hear from legal. And I really think we should be hearing from legal when we're trying to adjust how we're doing the Planning Act, which is a legal and a planning area.
Just 1 second.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we should be speaking, Mr. Mayor, to the amendment or the motion that's before us, not to LPAT hearings that are going on regarding other issues. When it's appropriate, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to second round of speaking, please. Thank you.
Okay, we're in it now with Councilor Munch.
Yeah, well, I think the Planning Act is a legal matter, and I think this motion has to do with the Planning Act. And this is a statutory public meeting, so I don't really understand what the point of order is. I think we should be following a rule of law here. I really think we should be having good governance. We should be having an open and transparent.
Yes. Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me, I agree with your point of order. Councilor, you have to talk about today's motion, not the one that was at LPAT, please.
Yeah, but today's motion is about a statutory public meeting whereby a motion is moving forwards where decisions are being made.
Okay, fair enough.
That is what this discussion is about. That's what I'm using as a reference that was brought forward. I would hate to have this situation continue without having a legal framework based upon ad hoc, discussions that are said or not said. It's only my comments. I really think I think we should be hearing from our legal department if we're going to be adjusting how we're doing things. Thank you.
I'll go back to staff if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I suggest, please.
Mr. Galanis, any thoughts?
I'll reiterate what I advised council through you, Mayor Barrow, 2 weeks ago. There's nothing that I'm aware of in the Planning Act that would prohibit such a motion from coming forward. I'm not the town solicitor, and I think we talked about the procedural bylaw the last time, and I don't think there's anything in that bylaw as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Pirelli and then Councilor West. Second, 2 times.
Mr. Mayor, as I stated earlier, this is a motion, clearly by reading it, you know that I didn't write it alone and that I had help from staff. This is something endorsed by staff. Staff have suggested and stated for the record that there's nothing unusual about this. This doesn't limit us in any way. This actually makes things more efficient moving forward. And it shows a good relationship between the city, the applicant, and the residents. As you can see, Mr. Mayor, there weren't a pile of delegates here speaking this evening, speaking against this. And there's a reason for that, Mr. Mayor. But one of the things that I need to address, Mr. Mayor, are the comments made by 2 of my colleagues saying that we don't make decisions here. We actually do make decisions, Mr. Mayor. Usually the decision is to advance staff's recommendation to receive all comments and refer them back to staff. That is, Mr. Mayor, a decision. We are a council duly formed here to make the decisions on behalf of the city of Richmond Hill. We have a clerk and we have professional staff that are required. So, Mr. Mayor, please, we need to let the residents who are watching this know that when people make comments like we don't make decisions, it's exactly what we're doing every time we move a motion. We are making decisions. The decision that I want to make this evening, that I put forward, is something in collaboration with our staff. Our staff have just indicated for the second time that this is a perfectly acceptable motion and that it doesn't disadvantage us in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, it helps us move through the process a lot quicker and expedient. And in these unprecedented times, Mr. Mayor, it is this type of action that needs to be taken so that we move forward and not backwards, Mr. Mayor. Those are my comments. I wish we get the full support of this council this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I go on, perhaps when I begin the meeting, I start off about the fact that we're going to hear from this person, hear from that person, and there'll be decisions. I should change that. That's my fault, I would believe. There's no final decisions made at all. There are decisions, ones that we pass everything on, or we don't pass, or we change it, or what. So I can take full blast for that one. But in the final, there is no final decisions. And I'll be sure to keep that in my introduction of how this is going to work. Councillor Weiss.
So thank you for that. I agree. I mean, you need to completely rewrite the script, and it probably needs to say we may or may not make a substantial decision. We'll always make a decision, but it may be a quasi-approval. It may not be a quasi-approval. We just don't know until it happens. So you have to change the script for something like that. The problem that I have, and I think, I can't remember whether it's Councillor Munch or Councillor Chan or both said this, that this staff report is, in my mind, in the 7 years that I've been on council, has always been designed to give a brief overview of the types of information that need to be looked at in any given application. And as Councillor Chan said, there are a number of departments that have not weighed in yet. We would never make a final, at least I hope, we would never make a final approval without all of the information in front of us. So to make any sort of a substantive approval tonight, which, you know, this is some sort of an approval, I guess, without all the information in front of us, I agree with Councillor Munch. I don't think it's good governance, or at least it's not the best governance that I would expect from this council. You know, to speak to something that Councillor Barrows said, I mean, I have no doubt that we have the ability as council to do a lot of different things at a meeting like this, but the tradition is undeniably been in the past, and this is what the public expects, and this is what I would expect as a councillor, is that, like Mayor Barrow's script at the beginning of the council meeting or the council public hearing says, no substantive decisions are made. It's really an opportunity to gather information. That's what public hearings are about. So just because we can do something legally doesn't mean that it's a good idea to do it, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be adding any benefit to our governance. That's the problem that I have with this. I don't think this is a good precedent to be setting in these council public hearings. The other thing about it is that I'm actually not convinced that making a decision like this at this meeting will substantially speed up the process. I mean, we will get to there when we get to there. But if we follow the procedure that we normally follow, we'll get there with the full information in front of us and the time and the opportunity for our planning staff to fully vet all of the details. And regardless of whether it's a controversial application or whether it's not a controversial application, I don't think really makes any material difference to this conversation. So unfortunately, I won't be able to support the motion because of the way it is written in this particular case. But I do want you to know, Miss Applicant, that I do have, you know, I think that there are some good aspects of this particular application. And I think it would be better for us to have been able to spend the time and go through the regular process to vet all of the different aspects of that. So those are my comments for tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right. We will now call, oh, sorry, Councillor Fowler, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't speak earlier. I didn't really intend to speak. I thought this was pretty straightforward. Our staff's making a request that through Deputy Mayor Pirelli that there's really no need to belabor this. And I resent the implication that this is somehow circumventing a process. We're here in a public meeting. We're hearing from the public. There hasn't been any objection or concerns from the public.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, please, let's just keep it to.
No, you take points of order. That's part of the process as well.
I agree. I'm trying to say to Counselor, then would we stay on the items here as opposed to?
You haven't taken my point of order yet.
What is your point of order, sir?
The point of order is nobody, Councillor DiPaolo, has said that we're circumventing the process. In fact, in my comments, I made it very clear that we can do different things. That's not what we're saying. So I would suggest that perhaps you stick to the point.
Well, I would disagree, Councillor.
I would disagree also. I heard very clearly, we don't want prejudice.
Going back to Councillor DiPaolo. Would you guys just kind of?
You're still suggesting.
Get a lid on this, please.
Not following a proper process. You know it.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
You're all finished.
So there was a reference made to a tradition anyways. Now, that tradition doesn't mean that that's the proper way to go. And I think we are proceeding properly, and there is a changing times, and we've had a little bit of a problem in the last 4 or 5 years with the way, the speed in which and the amount of red tape that our planning process has taken. It's having a budget impact on us. We're trying to correct that, and we need to get a little more flexible with our process. But this application's been circulated. Everyone who needs to comment has commented. Every step that needs to be taken it has been taken. It's been prudently dealt with, and I'm happy to support the motion on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All those in favor.
Record a vote, please.
I'm sorry?
Record a vote, please, Mr. Mayor.
There is a recorded. Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, voting on the motion that's on the floor, Councillor Chan.
Councillor Chan?
Councillor Chan?
No.
Councillor West?
No.
Councillor Munch?
No.
Regional and local Councillor DiPaolo?
Yes.
Regional and local Councillor Pirelli?
Yes.
Councillor Barros?
Yes.
Mayor Barrow?
Yes.
Councillor Liu?
No.
That motion ends in a tie. That motion fails to carry.
Okay, so we don't have a motion. Do you want to go back to the referral that you started with, Councillor Liu?
Yes, please. I need a seconder.
I will second it.
Okay. Okay. That's the original one. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor of, I'm sorry?
I'd like to speak to the motion.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Councillor Crowley.
Mr. Mayor, through you, I may have missed it. Maybe one of my council colleagues can enlighten me. But what are the comments that we're moving forward, since there are none from the public? It was stated that this is a statutory public meeting. We have not one comment from the public, but we're going to move those forward to staff. Can someone please, I'm looking for someone to tell me what these comments are we're moving forward to staff are. Anybody?
I would suggest that the applicant has put information down for us in this process, and the Councillor Liu made comments during the discussion.
So
there weren't any other residents here. You're absolutely right. So those are
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, with the greatest of respect, this is a statutory public meeting to gather comments from the public, not comments from council. Council is the decision-making body. We don't need to tell staff what our concerns are. We need to adjudicate and vote on that. Staff are telling us their recommendations. We're not telling staff our recommendations. This is a statutory public meeting. You're going to now, as the motion says, move all comments be referred to staff. There are zero comments to be referred to staff. I cannot support an imaginary.
There was correspondence. There was correspondence that we received, was in our agenda. And the delegation, of course, was the representing the owner. So there was information that was put on the table tonight.
And Mr. Mayor, staff did receive those comments, did they not?
Yes. So we're here.
Why do we have to refer them to staff again if they've already received them?
No, there's still there's still
this
correspondent. There's correspondence also.
Yes, but the correspondence is already received by staff, Mr. Mayor. What this process is about is any delegations that came forward tonight that did not send correspondence in to move those comments to staff. Seeing that there are none, I don't know what we're moving forward because they already received the written correspondence. They know what that is. It's in the official record. So what are we really moving forward, Mr. Mayor? Why are we having a council meeting where we have all this staff here and we're not advancing the business?
Okay, we don't know, sir, if anybody is going to be here or not. Some can send letters in that we encourage. Others, if you don't have anybody that comes, you still have to move through the process.
That's what I'm saying, Mr. Mayor. What comments are we referring to staff? Because they already have the written correspondence. So what are we moving? Just tell me what they are, list them, and I'm happy to support it. But if there's nothing to move, if there's no comments, there's nothing to recommend to staff, what are we doing this for? It's a moot point.
Okay.
Is that because the tradition is that we should just?
I'm saying we had correspondence that came and it's carried forward in this meeting. That's the point.
But the staff already know that, Mr. Mayor. It's in their report. They already received all these comments. So my question,
we receive it here.
Of the motion, what specifically is the new information that this council is now going to officially recommend that staff listen to? What is it? The new comments that we received this evening. I just want to know what they are. List them so that I know if I can support it, because maybe I don't want them to hear those comments. Got to make a decision. So if the mover or the seconders could just articulate what new information was received.
Correspondence was sent to us.
No, the correspondence, Mr. Mayor, they already had way before this meeting. Of course, they listened to everything. All the residents' meetings, all the meetings they had with applicants and minors and neighbors and stuff. They listened to all of that. They already have all that, Mr. Mayor. My question is, what are the comments we are referring to staff this evening that they already haven't heard? That's all.
Correspondence that we received from a resident who sent them to the clerk's office.
But they already have that. The clerk already
the clerk has them. So he presents them to us at the meeting. That's exactly how it works. And I can't.
But they're there for the public record already. We don't need to advance anything. If we don't do anything, okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Galanis. I have a question, Mr. Galanis. That correspondence, if this council were not to move that all comments be referred back to staff, would you ignore any comments received by the clerk's office?
Through Mayor Barrow, no, of course not.
Of course not, Mr. Mayor. You have your answer. We don't have to tell them to look at comments. They're professional staff. They look at all comments. That's their job. The purpose of this meeting is to get new information. And I would like to recommend to staff that they look at all the new information. And I'd like to support the motion that the mover and the seconder made. All I want to know is what is that new information that we are sending to staff that they don't already know about? And then I'm happy to support it. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the mover and the seconder, can you just list the first 3 or 4 comments that we learned here this evening? I'm happy to support it. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the mover.
The point being was just we were going back to the original motion. And then, and as you say, there was nothing there to move on and send it off to the staff. So the point being, I'm saying is, this was presented to the clerk's office. So the
Mr.
clerk's
Galanis
office.
already said he's not going to ignore that. What are we really? What is this motion?
Receive it first.
They already have it. They're not going to ignore it. He just gave you his assurance.
I'm going to call the question, sir, because I don't think that there's anything that has been wrong. People didn't arrive to the meeting. They didn't bring any information. We have a meeting set up. We have a recommendations on the staff report. That's all there that we've not seen before. So all of that is new to us too. So I think all comments that we have had.
There were no comments, Mr. Mayor, this evening.
Yes, there were.
From whom?
I say there were, and I'm going to call the question.
I challenge the chair.
Okay.
I challenge the chair that there were, you say there were comments made by the public. I say there weren't.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak to the motion.
The clerk's got to put it up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, should the ruling of the chair be upheld, if members are voting yes, that means that the chair's ruling stands, and if it is a no, then the chair's ruling does not.
So let's be clear.
No, that's the clerk is handling this. Why don't you?
Yeah, I want to know what the question is. Your ruling was that we received comments from the public. This is a council public meeting. It's not a council.
It's a council public meeting. Oh man, I don't know how many times I have to repeat it. Please.
Well,
okay, the clerk. Somebody's called. You've called it, and the clerk is in charge at this point.
Regional Local Councilor Pirelli?
No.
Regional Local Councilor DePaula?
No.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor West?
Yes.
Councilor Munch?
Yes.
Mayor Barrow?
Yes.
Of course.
Councilor Liu?
Yes.
Councilor Barrows?
No.
That motion carries. The ruling of the chair is upheld.
Okay. So
for the record, Mr. Mayor, your motion was.
Do you wish to hear to call the order, or do we want to put up our hands for the?
Mr. Mayor, I didn't get an opportunity to speak to the motion.
I'm sorry?
I didn't get an opportunity to speak to the motion.
The motion?
My hand's been up.
Which motion, sir?
The only motion that's on the floor right now.
Okay, fair enough. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion on the floor currently is to receive all comments from the public and refer them to staff. And it's been interpreted that written material to staff is also correspondence from this meeting, and that's fine. I guess my only desire was that we take this application and we move it forward. And unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, some members of council have taken the position that they want to play politics over process. If you recall last week, Mr. Mayor, we had an application in my ward where we had a lot of members of public show up. There was lots watching online. There was lots of delegates. And at that point in time, members of council voted almost unanimously to support the residents in their desire to say no to the applicant. We did not hear from these members of council. We can't support the local councillor because he's contrary to our traditions. So it seems awfully fun, Mr. Mayor, for members of council when there's not public participation in this particular application to play politics. But when there's lots of applications, lots of members of the public watching, then all of a sudden they get, oh, of course we support the public regardless of what our tradition was. So I find that offensive. If you want to talk about good governance, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to talk about members of this council being consistent in how—
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Let's go. please, can we just stick to?
Let's stick to the subject at
I
hand, please.
will do the point of order. Thank you. And Councillor Barrows, I understand what is happening. Can you just keep it as to how it's going to impact today's motion? Thank you.
So in the end, Mr. Mayor, my only desire was to move a very non-controversial situation forward so that the residents of Richmond Hill in the end can benefit by it. It's unfortunate that we've got some bad politics at play here that is not allowing this to move forward in a more expeditious manner. Of course it's going to move forward, but it could be more expeditious. I hate seeing red tape being put in the way of good applications. And most members of council said, I like this application. I think it's good. I just don't like the way you're presenting it, so I'm gonna stick it to you. I'll vote in favor of the motion because I don't really have a choice right now. I would have liked the other one, but that's okay, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my feelings as I feel them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All in favor of the motion that was before us? All those in favor, please. Hands up. We'll be doing hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Can we get a recorded vote, please?
Sure. Go ahead.
For you, Mr. Mayor, voting on the motion on the floor, Councillor Mudge,
Yes.
Councillor Barrows,
Yes.
Mayor Barrow,
Yes.
Councillor West,
Yes.
Councillor Liu,
Yes.
Regional and Local Councillor DePaula,
Yes.
Councillor Chan,
Yes.
Regional and Local Councillor Pirelli,
Mr. Mayor, can you tell me what the comments are that were referring back to staff specifically?
We're in the vote, sir.
Regional Local Councillor Pirelli,
Yeah, just a question for clarity. What are the comments that we're referring back to staff? Could the clerk please list them for clarity? Because this is a very vague statement.
Regional Local Councillor Pirelli, the chair was challenged and the ruling of the chair was in that there were comments that were made. So we could vote on the motion that's on the floor, please.
I agree with you, Mr. Clerk. I understand there were comments, and since there were, it should be very easy to list them here so that I know exactly what they are being referred back to staff. Just want to make sure we get it clear. I don't know what they're going to refer back.
Sorry, sir, we've had that explanation. You decided that I wasn't properly giving you the right information. It turned out that the majority thought that it was reasonable amount of information and
I agree with you, Mr. Mayor.
So could we?
I agree. There were comments. I just want to know what they were before I vote on them.
Okay, they're the same ones that we had talked about last time.
It's just the written correspondence
Yes.
that the staff already have. All right, I'll go along to get along. Sure, I'll support it.
Local Councillor,
I'll have to read those reports, absolutely.
that is a yes vote, right?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Thank you all. Motion to adjourn. Councilor Barrows.
Recorded vote.
All those in favor?
Recorded vote.
Seriously?
I find that offensive, Mr. Mayor. I called for a recorded vote.
Okay. I must.
Voting on the motion to adjourn, Regional Local Councillor Pirelli,
Yes.
Councillor Barrows,
Yes.
Mayor Barrow,
Yes.
Councillor Munch,
Yes.
Regional and Local Councillor DePaula,
Yes.
Councillor Chan,
Yes.
Councillor West,
Yes.
Councillor Liu. Councillor Liu, please.
Councilor Yu.
Yes. Yes.
That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Unanimous.